I was like, what? Wait a minute.
I am going to make a Wix site someday.
Yeah. I'll see the end joke.
Just, do you know what it's like?
Yeah.
Okay, so e-commerce and WordPress. So I've kind of based this around like the different things to consider in your search for the ideal solution. A couple of you have seen something similar to this. Remember, I did the drawings on it, but this is more kind of, you get slides and everything, maybe some images in between.
Wow.
So I want to kind of approach it from, like if a client comes to us, because we've built websites, e-commerce websites based on all sorts of platforms using WordPress or other installations or maybe some combination of both for any range of different types of e-commerce, so retail and virtual products, rental, fulfillment by Amazon, fulfillment by distributor, all that kind of stuff. So if I'm approaching it from a kind of client-facing perspective, there's different ways that I would look about it and try and advise if you guys, anybody is considering e-commerce. And of course, the first thing you're going to think about is like, how do you choose the best platform? So of course we're thinking predominantly WordPress. How do we do it with WordPress? But there's other platforms out there that maybe integrate well or can be used in conjunction with. So the WordPress, everybody knows Shopify. There's Kajabi for like online training, and it's worth bearing in mind. It doesn't have to be exclusively WordPress. All right.
So NV.
Yeah, it does tonight.
Yeah, but it's mainly WordPress. But I'm going to just show you different kind of ideas.
Alex, you said NV, it doesn't have to be WordPress. What does NV mean? Sorry.
Oh, it just means note. It's some Latin thing. Do you guys not do that here, no?
No.
No? I can't
Latin?
remember.
Is that?
Yeah, it's
We
not-
don't do Latin.
What is Latin?
Nah, it's a dead language. I think I don't know what it stands for, but it's like two words.
Yeah.
One starts with M, one starts with B, but it just means to
Like,
note.
To note.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Nodius bonius.
Probably, yeah.
Nodius
More than
bonus.
likely that's what it is.
I am live streaming this, just so you know.
No. Nodius bonus. Hello, Internet.
All right, so if you say you've got something to sell, whether it's a physical product or virtual product or whatever, the first thing you have to consider is the suitability of WordPress. So you got to think about the product type that you're trying to put out there. Is it virtual? Is it physical? Is it a mixture of all of those things? So maybe you need to send physical products. You need to be able to stream, paid webinars or send out disc sets and all that kind of stuff. Oh no.
That's.
I'm wondering what the delay is.
So like you think of like Tony Robbins or Brian Tracy or people like that. So they sell virtual products, but they also ship out like DVDs and audio books and disc and things like that. So they've got systems for each type of product. So depending on what type of product you want to sell, there may be different solutions available. So if I was approaching this as somebody who wanted to sell something online, I'd be thinking about the major wish list items. And I think I'd maybe talked about the example last time about the loyalty program thing. We had a client who was doing a fulfillment by Amazon retail business, and they wanted to instigate a loyalty program whereby every time somebody bought something, over in their little dashboard it counted up a tally, and every time they reached 10 bottles they got a free bottle shipped out. So we created this thing in WordPress using WooCommerce as the e-commerce system and then hooking it into Amazon. And she started out using it and then decided on a whim to go to Shopify. Well, with Shopify you can't do that. You can't have that kind of custom element where it feeds into the system because Shopify is so closed down in the same way that any of those software service platforms generally are. So instantly if somebody were to say to me, right, you know what, we need to do like a really wacky or custom loyalty program where we have to have this custom dashboard that feeds into this system and links with that system, Shopify is a no-go. It's not going to work. So WordPress works really well for that because it's open source. We can pretty much do anything if you have decent programmers on board. So think about the major wish list items you want to put forth within a product offering. Something like that, or maybe some crazy ideas, some just different things that you might want to offer that really enhance the offering to the end user. Also to consider whether you want absolute control, which is WordPress. You can basically dip into any code, you can pull plugins and tear them apart and rebuild them for your own purpose. So do you want ultimate control or do you want an easy life? Because if you want an absolute easy life, WordPress probably isn't always going to be the best solution, depending on how intricately you want to get involved in it. And then you got to think about your own experience, knowledge, skill level. With WordPress, there's always a bit of a learning curve, but it's a fairly intuitive system. The downside of it is, of course, that things can break. So if you go into, into the theme files or whatever, and you delete a single bit of code, then you could break your entire homepage, or break the linkage between your cart system and your bank account or whatever, and then everything kind of grinds to the halt. So you got to think about that. Do you have enough experience, or do you have a team, or the outsource capability, people you trust, where you can kind of cover all those bases. And then you got to think about the setup costs versus the ongoing costs, so your individual budget in terms of e-commerce. If you're starting out in, hey, how's it going? Oh, no worries, no problems, take a seat. So if you're starting out in e-commerce, if you're doing it with WordPress, you're going to probably, if you're going to try and do it yourself, that's one thing. And of course you can use all the basic plugins like WooCommerce, and that'll kind of get it up and running. But what about if you need something a bit more intricate, like a loyalty program that feeds in between different systems and things like that? Well, that's going to be a pretty hefty upfront cost unless you can actually code it all yourself. So with WordPress, it can be really easy and free to set up an e-commerce system, but depending on how intricate your system is, or how intricate you want it to be and feature rich, you're going to have pretty hefty upfront costs, which you may not have with other solutions. So you've always kind of got to factor that in. Number 2 on the list then is what I'd be considering is the ease of implementation. How easy is it to actually get it live? So will the e-commerce platform integrate with your existing WordPress website if you have one? If you've already got a theme set up, like Jordy, you've already got, remember you were talking about the church theme?
Yeah.
So it's kind of sitting there, but if you wanted to add an e-commerce function into that,
Right.
is it going to create some sort of conflict with the theme? Is the theme not pre-built to handle that integration? If it's not, then you've got to fix it. You can fix pretty much anything, but you may know with WordPress, specific to the themes, a lot of the themes, if we're using WooCommerce, and generally speaking, I don't see the reason to use any other WordPress e-commerce platform. But if we are using something like e-commerce, there's pre-built themes which automatically integrate with it, so it works perfectly. So you can just, if you're trying to sort of retrofit WooCommerce into a pre-built theme, you can run into issues there you need to be aware of. Sometimes it's almost better just to kind of start, if those conflicts are there, just kind of start from scratch.
You have a podcast and you want to sell T-shirts.
Yeah, sounds like you've been there.
No, I'm just thinking.
So yeah, any of those things, it's just about thinking, are you ready for the headaches that are going to come with like integrating WooCommerce into your WordPress website? So WooCommerce, has anybody used WooCommerce? Yeah?
But yeah,
You sort of know
I've spun it up and played around with it, yeah.
It's a pretty fluid system. I started using it about 9 years ago, and it wasn't that great then, maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Right now it has like a step-by-step setup process, so when you launch it, when you first install it and activate it, then it's like step 1, enter this, step 2, do this, here's your products, it takes you through it, which is really nice. And I think they've tailored that more for that kind of market that was probably complaining when Shopify has all that, when you set up, and some of the other systems do as well. Like I use Kajabi for the online training part of my business, so it's all just kind of step by step. Enter your logo here, and they'll figure it all out. Choose the theme, they'll figure it all out. So that's one thing.
Yeah, that setup process is nice because then they also generate the pages.
Yes,
that you
automatically.
need,
Just
like
click the
checkout
button.
page, and
Yeah,
like
you
you
can
can come in as like actual pages.
exactly. Yeah, just auto
So
populates all those.
is that some of the integration you're talking about? So like if you have a theme, and then the WooCommerce generates a page, it'll make the page in the same theme.
Yeah, it can.
Without
have
causing problem.
Yeah, there can be a conflict there. It just doesn't look right.
Mhm.
Things don't fit quite into
Right.
place like they should, and so on. But the system does auto-generate all those pages, so you don't need to worry about once somebody clicks add to cart, and I have to set up a cart page,
Right.
and then I've got to set up a checkout page, and then I've
Right.
got to kind of work on the checkout
Click
process.
the same frame.
Yeah, they do it. It's not always perfect, but they do it automatically when you hit the install button. It just goes.
Yeah, that's that walkthrough,
Right.
that setup process.
Yeah, so it's really nice, and you can set tax and shipping costs, and whether your virtual product, your stock levels. Pretty much, WooCommerce has become a much more heavy package recently. So you got to think about that as well. How fast can you or do you need to launch your e-commerce store? You know, if you need it launched tomorrow to get those t-shirts selling from the webinar, you know, can you do that? Well, these days with WooCommerce, you pretty much can, in the same way you can with Shopify. You can launch a store if you've got everything ready to go. You can launch it within an hour or so, and it does automate all the processes. So then the third thing I'd be thinking about when it comes to e-commerce is the default user experience and user interface. So like we were saying there with WooCommerce, they've thought it through pretty well. It didn't always used to be that way, but it's a pretty good system. The system itself, does the system itself and the theme you're using come well built? First of all, for conversion. Just because you've got a theme that works with WooCommerce doesn't mean it's set up in the right way strategically to take people through the funnel and get them to click the right buttons in the right order and go to where you want them to go and where they need to go. So you do have to think about the strategy a little bit, especially when you're picking a theme and then integrating WooCommerce into it. So is it well built for conversion out of the box is going to be one of the things I'm thinking of. Then are the aesthetics of the system and or the themes professional? You want to have them looking pretty nice. We've discussed WordPress in the olden days when, you know, it was like white and blue and grey with Georgia font. It just looked terrible. But by and large, a lot of the themes these days are pretty nice looking. I mean, we tend to work with all sorts of in-between. So it could be a pre-built theme that we launch and populate with the client's content. It could be a completely custom blank canvas theme that we design and build from scratch. But ultimately, you've got to think about the system that you're using itself. You know, there's no point in doing putting in place kind of. I'm trying to think of are there any older e-commerce kind of plugins for WordPress? I just haven't used any other ones recently. Does anybody know of any? We're all WooCommerce.
I see one. Yeah, before WooCommerce there was one. It was like e-commerce. I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And it was
probably called e-commerce for WordPress.
Yeah, WP e-commerce.
Yeah.
But it was like the limitations that the one time I tried to implement, I was trying to help a guy who was selling products, and he was based in New York City, and he had a real hard time with sales tax, specifically in New York.
Yeah, sure.
So that was his struggle with, and we were getting in there like customizing it to like the nth degree. So we were fighting against it the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of those features that WooCommerce has, where you can set all the different tax brackets and things, and it just automatically calculates it based on the person's delivery address or whatever. But when you're thinking about the aesthetics of the system, I do remember some older systems that just looked terrible. You know, they had those basic style buttons, you know, like kind of the old PayPal buttons and things like that, and they don't look particularly nice or attractive. They're not great in terms of a call to action. So are the aesthetics of the system as well as the theme that you're using professional, and do they work well together is something I'd be looking at. And is the navigation system easy to control? So can you actually go in and restructure your process or make sure that you can control pretty much everything within WordPress? I know there's other systems whereby the navigation system is actually quite a bit of a pain to get into and kind of rejig, whereas WordPress, you just go into appearance themes or appearance menus and it's in there as long as it's being kind of correctly programmed. And can you easily adapt the call to actions? So a lot of the ones, like, you remember back, I mean, I guess when I started out like 9 years ago, when you integrated PayPal and you had to kind of use their styled buttons for the most part. You know, if you're doing like a base install, you're using the PayPal buttons on your website, and it doesn't.
It'd be kind of jarring.
Yeah, it's jarring. You can't change the text on them. You just got to kind of pick from the few that they have, and that's not always a good thing, because then everybody has the same call to actions, and you don't kind of create differentiation with your process. Speed of system as well. You got to think about the load times, responsiveness of the system, and it's something with WordPress that, especially if you're using e-commerce like WooCommerce, their platform is pretty load heavy. You know, it takes a lot out of a shared server. So if you're using shared server and you're using WooCommerce, the first WooCommerce site I did was like a photography site where I sold my imagery. It was like landscapes of Ireland predominantly, but it was the slowest site, and I'm sure it lost out. It didn't do particularly well anyway, but people bought the photos here and there. but it was so slow. Like everything, like every page took about 30 seconds to load, and it was a WooCommerce optimized theme, albeit I didn't do anything to it. I just kind of plugged it in and left it. But it was so slow that I'm sure it would have pissed me off if I was on it. You know, but I kind of left it there. It wasn't really my primary thing. It was more a test kind of site. You got to think about that: the speed of the system, the responsiveness of the server you're using. I generally wouldn't recommend anybody use WooCommerce on a shared server. I mean, most of what we do would be like a VPS minimum, and then up to dedicated and so on. I'm sure you'll know more about that than me, but in general terms, for user experience, if somebody's on a website, you want it to be snappy. If somebody clicks add to cart, you want it to add to the cart instantly, and then take the cart, checkout, goes through the process, and it all works really snappy. That's really important to kind of consider, and not something you have to consider so much with the software service platforms like Shopify or Kajabi or Teachable or any of those other ones.
Is the speed, like, do we know, is it due to how much you're selling, or is it just how much activity there is on the site, on the server overall?
I mean, I technically, I don't know. You probably know, Joel, would you? Is it just the sort of complexity of
Right, or that's
plugin? It's not to do with the products themselves
Yeah,
so
but
much.
I think that probably part of it is those pages aren't going to be cached, right? Because you're going to be dealing with dynamic content specific to the transaction at hand. So
Yeah, so
you're
it has to
it's not
reload
gonna
it
be
every
able-
time.
Yeah, and it's going to go all the way back and generate all those pages every time. So it's going to be a very
Yeah.
expensive call every time. So.
Yeah.
And of course, those are like the most important ones.
Yeah.
Because you're going through the
Through a process.
transactions. So.
Yeah.
So if you were just selling a few things, you still might run into the speed issues.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think certainly I think a shared environment is one of those places you could certainly try it out.
Yeah.
And test
Yeah.
it. See, like, if
If
this
it's
is
not
where-
going well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, like a small shop would
Right.
totally figure it out right away if it's gonna, like, if their product can sell,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And you can transfer too. Like, just because you're sitting on a shared host,
Yeah.
doesn't mean you can't take your code and just, like, hey, guess what? We're going gangbusters and everybody wants my t-shirts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
move them up to a different server.
Yeah.
That's all straightforward.
Yeah, just upgrade, get a few more resources working.
It's just code,
Hmm.
man. Just code.
That's true with everything, either
It's all
literally or
code.
figuratively.
Everything's code.
All to do with that. So number 4 then on the list, I'd be considering cost of WordPress versus other solutions. I touched on it a little bit earlier. So again, WordPress can be potentially a heavy upfront cost in terms of either time investment if you're doing it all yourself, or expense if you want some crazy ideas put in there, like the loyalty program that kind of converses in between systems, or just really any other kind of more bespoke functionality. It's all possible with WordPress, which is why it's great. But you're going to be lumped with a kind of upfront bill, just to facilitate that, which you don't have with some other options. Like if you look at Shopify, I think the base package is like $39 a month, but the mid one, which is kind of the one you would generally go for most products, is like $79 a month, and then you kind of add on your plugins and your if you want to do a premium theme, normally the best ones are about $180, so they're way more they're 3 times more expensive than WordPress, but as a whole, it's not very much to pay if it really looks the part. So with Shopify, it's kind of spread out, longer term, not so many of the upfront costs, but in no way anywhere near the kind of the flexibility to control the code and the functionality, and make other systems communicate. So it tends to stack up. You'll start out with Shopify at its base install at $79, and then you start adding on features and functionality, and suddenly you're up at $500 a month. So you got to factor that in when you're looking at Shopify. Seems very easy, and it is, but with WordPress, it's just kind of more upfront costs. Are there bolt-ons needed? So premium plugins with WordPress, if you're starting out with maybe a membership website and you want lock away your content behind a portal, normally you're going to pay for a premium plugin at $97 or $197 or $297, or you're going to pay a monthly fee, much in the same way that Shopify does. So there's a platform called MemberMouse, which does that type of thing, but it's on a monthly plan. It's like $20 a month. Some of the other plugins as well, you think about like calendar or event booking, or rentals and things like that, or premium plugins. They could be anywhere from $10 to a couple of $100 as well. So again, cost, WordPress seems to be easy and free, but if you actually want some really good functionality, you've got to factor in those other costs. It's just really the same sort of information. So then, again, factoring that in, you've got to think about, is the WordPress system, is the cost of that prohibitive to your business at this stage? If you're just starting out and you want to test some stuff out, probably not, because you can probably get the e-commerce system up and running within a few hours and it'll be free because it's WordPress and WooCommerce, and maybe you buy a nice theme at $60, and that's about the height of your expense in addition to domain and hosting. Payment integration is just a pretty simple one. All the systems have really easy to install cart options. You know, WooCommerce being the one that we're kind of focusing on is very much that way. If you do want to take on-site payments, then of course you've got to factor in you'll need an SSL to take credit card information there. You'll also want to put in place additional security packages, you know, plugins and so on. You can get plenty of free security plugins for WordPress which are really good, like WordFence, or you can get premium versions of them which just offer you a bit more functionality. Same deal with themes or most of the other plugins you'll get. Factoring in again how long before you receive funds. I remember when a client first started using Shopify and she was doing it with fulfillment by Amazon. It took, you know, they'd only pay every few weeks or whatever. Whereas if you're doing it on your site, you can get the money in your account within, you know, 24, 48 hours. So WordPress is good in that way as well. Just the functionality, when you hook it into a system like Stripe, it'll feed the money across into your bank account every couple of days. Then I'd be thinking, is the platform marketable? So what are the inbuilt feature sets? So things like email subscriptions, order management, customer service, chat, and things like that. External system integrations. So if you want to feed in email, you got social tracking, analytics. Again, WordPress is great for that. It just generally will require you to be able to either follow a tutorial and take some time out to do that. You know, how to take Google Analytics code and copy it over and put it into your website and make sure it's working and validate it. Things like that. It's just a bit more hands-on. You need to be aware of that, or you need to get a programmer to do it, in which case they can blast through it pretty quickly. Future expansion as well. You got to think about functionality. When I was talking earlier about that loyalty program that one of our clients did, that's the type of thing with WordPress. She had her marketing site sitting there, and then she bolted in the e-commerce package, and then she was like, oh, well, we'd love to do this. Is this possible? So then you can kind of bolt on a new feature, functionality, expand it. The other thing as well is you're never going to lose that content. You know, if you keep your WordPress website and you keep it on hosting, you're never going to lose all the content you're building up. So if you're blogging or maybe you've got hundreds of products online, you're not having to worry about migrating them over to a new system or anything like that. If you want to maybe just refresh the design, the database is sitting there with the library of content. You can just kind of overlay the new design onto it, which is again a great thing about WordPress. So that example, the feature set limitations, which WordPress doesn't really have to worry about because you can pretty much do anything within reason. For instance, the loyalty program just isn't available on Shopify. There's certain plugins that try to do it, but normally it's email based, so it's not really a secure platform that hooks into Shopify. You know, it's more like enter your email and join our loyalty program, and then send you to another page, and then they just release pages and send you to those pages over time. And it's not a secure platform which kind of, you know, has that facility to reward your loyalty to that brand or anything like that, which I think is a big thing that it's missing, which WordPress can do. Okay, so security as well. You got to think about, especially with e-commerce, you got to think about the security angle, because WordPress, I know we talked about last time, Joel, about when you started out with WordPress, 10 years ago, you thought it was really bad for security. And I mean, I don't know.
It still can be.
Yeah, I mean,
you just have to stay on top of it.
I think from our perspective, more and more websites seem to be getting hacked. You know, because we get calls all the time. Can you fix this?
Sure.
Site's down. Some of that can be to do with shared server. You know, you're on a shared server I don't know the technicalities of it, but I assume if somebody hacks into one website on a shared server, they can kind of filter through to anything else on that server. Is that right?
I think it would, well, I mean, that would depend on the hack.
Yeah.
That's not like you have to get to that site. You can definitely get to the.
No,
Yeah.
But they could disrupt the back, right, which would affect
Yeah,
all
other
of the
sites can certainly be
Right,
affected
right.
if you take one site down.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just was thinking like, as far as modifying the files on another site or something like that.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
sure. That's
But
far too technical.
But just to your point though, just last week, WordPress released a critical security update.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like there was like, you need to go and update, you need to patch it now.
Yeah, I mean, they did that back in January. That it was like there's like 8 massive vulnerabilities here that everybody just needs to look at
Yeah.
right now. It's that type
And
of
it's nice that they have them set up now, like if your Apache user can write, or if it can actually write itself, it'll apply the patch.
Okay.
So, you know, they have those things set up, but the, you know, it's, if you don't have it set up, you still have to go in there manually,
Yeah.
apply the patches.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm updating all my WordPress. Usually it's last week, because some of them I haven't been on the dashboard in
Yeah.
like a week.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you do have to consider security. I feel more and more, and specifically if it's to do with e-commerce, and especially if you are trying to keep keep the whole process on your website, where you're taking credit card details and processing the payment right there. Because of course that's far better for user experience if you keep them on the site. But it just creates a bit more of an added process for you as the webmaster or the marketer, because you got to think about, is the site secure to begin with? Is the server secure? Not only it's like WordPress side security and server side security. And do you have an SSL and things like that? Just add that kind of extra layer of encryption. So that's the problem with WordPress to an extent. You just have to be aware of those things. You don't have to worry about it so much with software as service platforms, because they control everything. So it's the security, it's the server, it's everything. So security is definitely a factor with e-commerce. Analytics then, again, WordPress is great just because you can pretty much put in any analytics package into the code and be able to see what's happening on the website. So with built-in analytics, you can get those very, very basic, what's it called? Launch, what's it called? The package for WordPress that you install, I always forget.
Oh, Jetpack?
Jetpack, yeah. So you can get like, and it's another one of those ones which like comes, and you can choose all these different features, and it can be really heavy in terms of the load on the server, so it can really slow a site down. But that's kind of like the most basic level of analytics you can get on a WordPress website. So it'll tell you how many people come every day and where they're coming from and stuff like that. But for the most part, you want at a base level to have Google Analytics in there, so you can actually really delve into the data. And you want to look at things like the orders, visitors, bounce rates, and so on. Also the ability for more extensive tracking. So I think I talked about this system last time, Lucky Orange. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but we've used it on a few e-commerce systems, and they do heat map tracking and some analytics and things like that, so you can see where people are clicking on the page, which is great. But they also do a screen record of everybody that's on your site. So if somebody's on your site and you can see they're going to a certain button and they click that and they go to this page and then they click add to cart, and then the page starts to time out and they bounce out of your site, then you can see where that's happening. So you can actually review all the videos of people on your website, where they put the cursor, where they kind of stop, where they click through, and it's a little bit sneaky, to actually a bit seedy, kind of watching people on a website, but it can give you some good information in terms of the process through, particularly with an e-commerce website. If you are looking at where are we losing sales, well, it's taken 30 seconds between when you click checkout now and for the actual checkout process to load. What's the problem there? Is it the server? Is it some other issue with the code or whatever? Then you can start to look into things. The facility for expansion then is great. With regard to that, you can look at all sorts of different analytics. Okay, so when building an e-commerce store on WordPress, these are going to be the essential kind of components you're going to think about. As with all websites, you're going to need a domain. You've also got to factor in your hosting. And again, whether you're basing it on a single WordPress installation, you could have your website, your e-commerce platform, your training platform, everything on a single WordPress installation, or you could break them up into subdomains. Generally, that's not as good for search engine optimization if that's what you're focusing on, but it's feasible to have 3 different installations that you just kind of focus on each area. So you may just have a single hosting requirement, so at its very base level, normally $5 to $15 a month for base level shared server, and then maybe 50, 60 for like a VPS, and then anything that kind of high powered proper server, 100 plus, right? That sound right, Joe? Then you got to think about WooCommerce. Well, WooCommerce is free and open source, so you just plug it in and go. You're going to need an SSL. Some of the hosting packages, like I think maybe SiteGround do it. They do like a free SSL, right? Maybe not the most advanced or whatever. I don't know the difference between them.
There's also those new the Let's Encrypt. Are you familiar with those? So Let's Encrypt is actually part of I think it's the Mozilla Foundation that's set up. It's basically it's a not-for-profit foundation that's trying to just encrypt the internet, and to enable people. So like you can install like these clients in your servers that will essentially run generate SSL certificates for domains on your servers. They just basically validate to make sure that the server is actually serving that domain.
Yeah.
What it doesn't do is it doesn't do like the second level of like validating the company, and that like the personal information.
Right.
But it does enable encryption.
Okay.
So like for instance, that's what we do that on all of our sites. So like,
okay.
you go to gridnarrow.com, it's all nice and
cool.
and green. They're short-lived though. They're short expires. So they're only 90 days.
Right.
But you can write you can do it through, there's an Apache client, so you can just write a cron script that will, every week just check and just renew all the scripts, and it's really easy. And
that's cool.
Free.
Okay, well there you go. So that type of
Easy
thing
and
is free. At worst, you're probably going to be paying $60 for a year. You're going to then want to think about a premium theme, probably an e-commerce or WooCommerce compatible theme. There's loads out there, and a lot of them are just brilliant these days. They're really well put together, they look great, and they just kind of plug and play type thing. So that's going to be like $60. You can get a free security plugin to lock that down, and then whether you're going to build the site yourself or employ a programmer to do that for you, anything in any way feature rich, I generally would say programmers absolutely necessary. And there's so many components to the sites that our programmers look after, and it's really important that they look after, because it's very easy to do it wrong, or just not to have the level of functionality that you want to have. Normally you do need a programmer. Endless options, then you can add countless additional functionalities. If you think of something crazy, get a good programming team on board. They can pretty much do anything. Like the loyalty program. You may want to consider like premium security, dedicated servers, paid analytics packages like Lucky Orange, things like that, which are subscriptions, kind of $20 a month or something like that. Custom fulfillment integration. So, say for instance you're a retail e-commerce store and you want to do it, fulfillment by distributor. So you've got a distribution warehouse and you want them to ship out everything. Well, it's probably better that you get some custom work, programmer to hook all those systems up, to make sure that when somebody buys something on your site, it notifies your kind of site stock levels, it notifies the distributor, they start packing, they ship, then it feeds back into your system to notify the client that it's shipped. All that kind of stuff is very important, but the great thing about WordPress is complete control over those processes. And again, you can have multiple product types on a single website. So with Shopify, you're basically a retail outfit. You can do rental. We've done a rental store with Shopify, but run into a whole host of issues with it. Just rigid systems. You just got to settle really instead of just having exactly what you want as a business. But with WordPress, you can from a single site you can sell, retail, fulfillment by Amazon, fulfillment by distributor, fulfillment by garage. You can sell your virtual products, training packages, membership websites, anything like that. So you could be talking about a $0 cost or tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how complex and how expansive the system you want to kind of create. So then when building a software as service store, because I think it's important that you do consider other options. You know, WordPress is obviously what we're focusing on, and generally speaking, it's probably the best overall solution if you want to do all sorts of different things. But with a software as a service store, you don't have as many things to worry about. You probably got your domain, you pay for your subscription with Shopify or Kajabi or Teachable or I don't know, Volusion or any of those other platforms. You don't have to worry so much then for most of those about hosting. You don't have to worry about an SSL. You don't have to think so much about security. You don't really have to employ a programmer if you don't want to. But the problem is, of course, they're very limited in options. So you're probably going to have to get a premium theme for Shopify, maybe some minor customizations made, get some added functionality like analytics or social plugins or whatever it might be. The question is, how do you actually decide? So from my perspective, when I'm dealing with a client, we've done it every single way. We've done it pure WordPress, we've done it WordPress with Shopify embedded into WordPress, we've done it with WordPress, Shopify separate, we've done it with WordPress and Kajabi and Teachable, we've done it with WordPress and ClickBank, and all those other types of marketplaces that kind of sit out to the side. So I would always just say to anybody who's considering e-commerce, consider an amalgamated approach to make sure that you're hitting each component in the right way. So WordPress isn't the best platform, for instance, for a training platform. If you've got a training course, it's definitely easy to do, but it takes an awfully long time. You've got to really manually go in and go, right, this is lesson 1, and here's a link, I'm gonna link that through to lesson 2, I've got to go back, here's lesson, you have to like structurally get really detailed with the link systems for the most part. Systems like Wishlist, if you were creating a membership website, certainly you've quite often got to do that if you want the pages to look really nice. What we did at one point was WordPress website, Wishlist membership plugin, and then we used Optimized Press as the kind of training area, because they have quite nice training themes. So you can use Optimized Press as a plugin or as a theme itself. We normally use it as a plugin. And in that instance, we created this really nice training portal that looked the part, whereas the base WordPress theme training portal would look terrible, or the Wishlist member training area would look pretty bad as well. But then we had to think about all those systems. We had to go, right, well, we've got our WordPress site here, and then we've got Optimized Press here, and we've got to link those, you just got to think about it a lot more. It's a lot more in-depth, hands-on. If you use, for instance, on that example of like a training platform, if you use Kajabi, they automate the entire process. So you just add your lessons, upload your videos to their servers. You can drag and drop to reorder your video sequencing. You can create all your email sequencing within Kajabi. It's just all like a set, a really marketable platform is what what I was trying to say earlier. Like Shopify isn't particularly a great kind of platform for marketing. WordPress is, Kajabi is, and it's been designed in that way. But that's why generally I do recommend like an amalgamated approach. So how can WordPress work? So say you get your marketing site, your e-commerce, say you're selling physical products and then selling virtual products as well. Well, we can do it that way. We can do WordPress for your marketing, your front-facing website, WordPress for your e-commerce retail store, hook it into fulfillment by Amazon or distributor, and then we can sell your training courses or your seminars or anything like that on WordPress. Or we could do WordPress for your marketing, WordPress with Shopify embedded into it, albeit you have to bear in mind the embed process with Shopify strips out most of the like cool functionality that you can add to Shopify. So you've got to really take their base level store layout and just pop it into your WordPress website. So if you customize your store over on Shopify, which we've done on a number of client sites, you don't get that feature if you want to embed it in your site. You just get the stripped back basic version, which is not great. And then say you were selling training products, you could do Kajabi, and there's kind of 2 different systems. And then you could also do 3 different systems. And depending on what else you were selling, maybe your product range is all sorts of different things. You're selling your webinars, and you're selling physical products, and you're selling seminars, attendance. You've got all these different systems. You can do it in individual systems, or you can do it all with WordPress. But it's more just about tailoring it for your own business, what you're trying to sell, and making sure you make the right choices along the way. Pros and cons to WordPress, as we know: easy to implement, endlessly customizable, multi-use site. So again, you can sell all sorts of different stuff. You can use it for your marketing, your blog, e-commerce, membership websites, client portals, all that kind of stuff. Number 4, multi-product type. Again, just different product types, and it's really good for retail. The cons: security. Again, you got to really think about it with WordPress. You can't just go into it with, we'll launch an e-commerce store and there's WooCommerce, it's up and running. You got to think about the security both of the site, but also your paying customers' details if you want to process payments on the site. Scalability: while you can expand the site and add different functionality, which is great, as the business grows, sometimes it's harder to manage a WordPress e-commerce store just because of the intricacies of that. And there are, with WordPress, there's poor execution of certain types of e-commerce, like the training example I gave is really, it's really hands-on when it doesn't really need to be. And again, maintenance with WordPress, you're always having to update, latest things. If you've got a custom theme and it hasn't been programmed that well, if you hit the update button, it could break a whole ton of stuff in your website, and then you have to worry about that or pay a programmer to sort that. With software as service platforms, you don't need to worry about all that stuff. They look after it all. So it's just something else to bear in mind. So all of those things kind of stack up in the decision-making process. If I was coming at WordPress, I'd be thinking about suitability for your product or service, the ease of implementation, for instance, the speed to launch, default UX, UI, and aesthetics, kind of ultimately related to the professional look of the thing, the cost. So software as service, lower cost up front, but longer term commitment, versus self-hosted like WordPress, where you've maybe got an heavier investment up front, maybe 5, 10, 15 grand, depending on how complex it is, upwards. Payment integration, all the different multiple options, making sure that if you have a preferred payment method, we always use Stripe. So most systems these days have like a plugin, it's just get the API, click over to Stripe, all works really well. Some systems don't have that integration. It's like you've got PayPal or you've got Braintree and that's about it, or whatever. So you've got to think about that. If you've got maybe a preferred platform that you're already using, that you just want to continue using for efficiency's sake, that might be something to consider. Is it a marketable platform? So Shopify's terrible in my mind as being a marketable platform. It looks great, it's simple to put together a store and get it launched fast, but longer term, how do you create that kind of brand loyalty? It's much easier to do with a WordPress site if you have things like loyalty programs and different feature sets and functionalities that you can build in to enhance the experience of people when they're on your website. And then security, analytics to measure, get your baselines, refine the process, find out what's not working. Again, most of the platforms are really good for those. There's a couple of links that I've got throughout this, which, I can send this, I'll probably upload this to...
Yeah, we have the website.
Oh, we do. That's right. Yeah, we'll upload it to the website. You can check out the links as well.
We have a website for this group outside of Meetup.
Yeah, we do. We actually own the domain WPGSV.
Wow.
W.com.
I'm shocked that wasn't scooped up by
That was
somebody.
one reason why we got it.
WPGSV.
Make sure you scroll to the bottom.
Pennsylvania.
Huh?
Make sure you scroll to the bottom. .com. No,
I screwed up.
if you Google search it.
WPGS.
Oh. I thought it was some sort of Dutch
It stands
software
for
club.
Greater Susquehanna Valley. That's WordPress Greater Susquehanna
WordPress is
Valley.
what the WP stands for.
Yeah. Are you making fun of me?
We're just being dicks.
So that is my overview
That's good.
of e-commerce.
Wow. Oh.
Any questions?
Lucky Orange. So
Really?
the crazy tracking on Lucky Orange. How does it decide who to watch? How do you?
I
Is it
think
just
it literally watches.
everybody?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Now there's issues with it because we had one client using it and she came to me and said, "We're losing out. We've only got like I can't remember, 10% conversion rate when people are actually going into the checkout process." And we're like, that doesn't sound right because our sites are brilliant. There's no way.
Right.
There's just no way. So I didn't trust it to begin with, but she was like, it's awful, everything's falling apart. And I went into the Lucky Orange and I started watching some of the videos and I realised that Lucky Orange, which we had, I'm trying to think of the way we had set up the website. It was a Shopify website, and when people went and hit checkout, Lucky Orange wasn't always recognising that as a continued session. They were breaking the session up. So I was able to look at the ones who had completed the checkout and look at their IP addresses and match them to what Lucky Orange was showing people who had bounced out of the site and they hadn't really. So I was able to see that, I mean, it was, I think in like 5 minutes I pulled about 30 sales that had happened on, so it wasn't taking it through the whole process. And the problem was that when, I don't know why it worked sometimes and didn't work others within the Shopify system, but when somebody clicks checkout, they go to a separate, it's like a subdomain or something, and it broke the link somehow.
So they thought the session ended.
Lucky
Yeah.
Orange thought they left to another site
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So they counted it
Cart
as like a
abandonment.
bounce site. Yeah, card abandonment. So it's not perfect. Now that was a year ago. Maybe that's been fixed or whatever. I told our client to contact them and speak with them about it. But yeah, none of the analytics are perfect. But if you use an amalgamation of things, you're looking at heat map tracking, you're looking at maybe sneaky things like that you know, you can actually monitor where, you know, people's behaviours specifically, because it's sort of just the next step of heat map tracking.
Yeah.
You know, seeing what their behaviours are on the site, and then you can delve into all the fun analytics, like, you know, your kind of you user flow charts on Google Analytics, where you see where people go from here to there, and then where they drop out, and you can start refining different pages within the site accordingly. Especially important with e-commerce, you know, because you're ultimately all your revenue is generated there. So, but yeah, Lucky Orange is a funny one.
Now I just need some products to sell.
That's sorted, huh?
You don't though, because one thing that you can do with WooCommerce that I thought was pretty cool was you can actually use you can set up a whole cart and just sell affiliate. You can sell Amazon stuff and just set it as affiliate products.
Really?
Yeah, you don't even need to have the products. You just go make percentages off of somebody else's products.
You do need traffic then.
Well, yeah, there's always
Right.
something you need.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Like, your site would be really good at finding, like, comic books. for
Let's say you
example.
curate something, right?
Yeah.
And you have a very niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could put WooCommerce, say it's comic books, right? And you could just sell comic book related material,
Yeah.
and you just link to Amazon products. You just you managing this site. And
So, but the
then you
payment
have-
would go to the fulfiller
Oh,
at
yeah,
Amazon.
but the links would have your affiliate.
Yeah.
ID.
Yeah, they
Amazon would
You
collect
tag
the
it over
fund,
to-
and then they would cut you a check
They,
on a monthly
they said they
basis.
give you a check, like 3 to,
So
depending
just-
on how much you sell.
Just hypothetically, a comic book's $10. The person who actually physically has it gets a piece.
Yeah.
Amazon gets a piece, and then you get a piece for being the.
Yeah, you're gonna get like 3 to 7%.
But here's the twist about that. So let's say I'm on your site and I'm looking at a comic book, and I click through and I go to Amazon and I'm looking at a comic book, and then while I'm there I see, wow, they have this great deal on a refrigerator,
Mm-hmm.
and then I buy a refrigerator. You get a cut of the refrigerator sale.
Right. Yeah.
Because I was the referrer.
Yeah.
24 hours.
Sure.
The cookie lives for 24 hours, so anything they buy.
Yeah.
And it only holds one cookie, so the last one that they clicked. But they get.
What do you mean the last one you clicked?
So if you're on my site and you click a referral link,
Mhm.
then you have a cookie that says
Mhm.
that Joel referred you.
Mhm.
So anything you buy, as long as
Mhm.
that cookie's on your browser for the next 24 hours, then I get the cut. But if you go to Dave's site and you click,
Which you should.
and you click a link,
I'm sure he's much better at curating
his-
comics than me.
then it would replace the cookie, and anything you then buy in 24 hours.
So if I had
you know
stuff-
who should be talking about this. He's being very quiet.
That's next month.
Do you know people who do a lot of this?
They've made a living
Who
doing
does
this.
it?
Did you really?
We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
He's still being audited by the IRS.
I mean,
He's still Facebook Live.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud that like it's not. I mean, you were like it's free money. I mean, you'd have to be good at attracting traffic.
What
is
you
what
need
you're
is
saying.
and you would need traffic. You need traffic. Like it's gonna be like you need thousands of transactions if they're gonna
Right.
of small
You need,
transactions.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like Texty, for instance, right?
What?
Texty.
Tasty.
The Komodo grill. My website.
Oh, the
with
green egg.
Yeah.
I mean,
So remember this website? I showed you this website.
yeah, I did. That's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it looks
like-
better than the last. Not better. It looks like there's more stuff on it.
Maybe you're hungry.
Could be.
But if you, but just my point though, like,
So you shared that with me because you just wanted me to buy stuff so you would get money. I
Yeah.
feel so used.
yep, and then just retire. That was my plan. But no, if you go in, so like for instance, if you go to like
Uh-huh.
any one of these things where I'm talking about,
Yeah, yeah,
Dutch ovens for whatever,
yeah.
you know, click, I review, you review it, you talk about the pluses and minuses, right?
I see. Yep.
Click that to buy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yep.
You go to Amazon. That's how it works. So there you go. Take your hobby and
Yeah.
You know, Jordy.
And now you can.
I'm live, or you're taking pictures?
Hello, internet.
Hi.
It's okay, nobody's watching.
Hi, Mom.
Nobody likes the
I'm
page.
trying to think.
Thank you very much for.
Yeah,
Is this the brand? No, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
This is the brand now. Yeah.
that's the brand.
That's our brand, and it's actually that's the fun. Enjoy.
Hi, Veronica.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. Say again, Veronica. How you doing?
All right, signing off. Adrian, I'm gonna send this to you.
Hi, Adrian.
Hi from Thailand. Let us know what's up. We'll catch up with you guys next month.